Hey everyone, this is me, the Undead Viking. So there are times when I stop and I think, geez, how long have I been doing videos like this? It's been quite a while. So, which is cool and all. And every once in a while, like somebody from the past that I haven't kept in touch with, kind of resurfaces. And about a half a decade ago, a guy by the name of Jarrett contacted me. Kickstarter was just really like a brand new thing. He had an idea for a board game. He showed it to me and he asked me if I'd be willing to do a video for him. And I did a video for him a long time ago. And for whatever reason, the game, it didn't come to fruition. And I remember Jarrett saying, well, hey, you know what, I got some different ideas. I'm going to change up the game. I'm going to do some different things. I'll be in touch. And I was like, all right, cool, you know, whatever. And sometimes those people come back and usually it's like 6 to 9 months. And sometimes they just, you know, go off into the distance and I never hear from them again, which is fine. You know, sometimes games just evolve and become different things, or life happens and stuff like that. But lo and behold, fairly recently, 5 years later, Jared got back in touch with me and he's like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, but you did a video for my game a long time ago, and it's back, and it's totally different, and you know, it's like I really want you to take a look at it. And I was just like, holy cow! I remember the name of the game, Elemancers, but I was just like, that was like forever ago, which was really cool. That like you know, he came back. You know, it's like he's back. But no, I mean, it was super neat to like, I think I've run into him at a convention or two along the way. Maybe not, I don't know. But it was super cool that we kind of had to come back. And I did go back and watch my old video, and all I can think of is like, holy cow, was I young. Like 5 years. I mean, my son was 3. How cool is this? My son was 3 years old when I got this game. And now he's 8. 3 plus 5, 8, right? And he's playing this game with me, and he loves it. So I mean, that's like, it's just kind of a cool little journey that I've been on with this game, and it was kind of a nice way for me to just kind of take a few moments to kind of reflect on that journey and reflect on like just the different things that have happened in my life in the last like 5 years. I mean, it just doesn't seem like a real thing. But anyway, regardless to anything, Elemancers is super cool. Each player, you play with 2 to 6 people. It's basically a team-based strategy tactics game of like these Elemancers that are trying to control this world and control the world for their faction so they can win. And there's multiple ways the game can end. There's legendary weapons. There's a big giant evil dragon that's just this giant chaotic death machine. You know, there's just tons of cool stuff going on in this game, and I'm going to show it to you again. Maybe you saw the video 5 years ago. Probably not, I'm guessing. I mean, I don't know. Who knows? If you've been watching my channel for that long and you remember the old one, post that. Say that. That's pretty cool. But let me show you how the game's played, and we'll come back here and I'll give you my final thoughts. Alright, so this is Elemancers. Before I show you how the game is played and give you an overview, just keep in mind this is a prototype that I was sent, so what you get when the game is published might be different from what you're looking at right here. The board is separated into 2 halves, the dark side and the light side. These outlying hexes in these locations are like the home bases for each one of the factions. If you play 2 players, one person will take this faction, the other person will take this faction. As you add more players up to 6, you will start divvying up the different factions for the people. So if you're playing just a 2-player game, which I played quite a bit with my son, and we've had a lot of fun with it, you just control all 3 of the factions. Each faction gets its own faction board, as you can see here. I've just gone ahead and set up one of them that's located right here. This is the Anima faction, and its home base is located right there. And their avatar is this fellow by the name of Gorak. Each of the factions just basically has their avatar there on the front of it to kind of denote which faction. It is kind of interesting to note that when I get into the how the game is played, as you take your turns, the turns of the game it's always a set order. You know, it starts with purple, then goes here, and then goes here and here, and then there and there. So it's like it's always going to be in that order as the game is played. Also, the game only lasts 2 rounds, but there are many player turns in each of those rounds. So you're going to be taking lots of actions. To win the game, before I dive in, I'm just going to say to win the game, there's a few ways the game can end, I guess I should say. To win as a faction, you have to have each of your avatars be alive and activate their legendary weapon, which is a lore card, which are these cards located right here. I'll talk more about that as I describe the sagas that your avatars will be going on and trying to accomplish that task. However, there is, you might be wondering what this little like bubble bobble thing over here is. That bubble, that shield, remains until somebody activates the first legendary weapon, in which case this shield is then removed, meaning that players can move through that spot, but also Baransu, this huge mother of all dragons, will be released and start raining chaos on the other players as the game is played. All right, so very simply, this kind of is an action token game. So at the beginning of your turn, I've already done this, but you'll draw 2 cards off of your enemy, sorry, your creature or your unit types. These are these cards that will be represented by these tokens that are located here. And as you can see, each one of these factions has their own tokens. The actual units will look different, but they will have the same special abilities as denoted by the icon that is located on them. You will also draw 1 battle card and place that into the battle card location like so. So people will know that that you have battle cards available to you as once a battle it does take place. And I'll talk more about battle cards when we actually show you a battle. All right, so on your turn, what you will do is you will take one of these. These are power tokens. As you notice, we already have 1 power token located here. If we can get our units into these spaces that are representative of our home faction, we can place more of these power tokens out. Power tokens have the ability to increase our power, but also it's one of the, if the game actually lasts full 2 rounds, the number of power tokens you have per faction will actually lead to a winning situation as well. So you definitely want to like try to take control of these, and if opponents manage to get their power tokens on their locations, you want to be able to destroy them and take them off. I should mention a couple things. Even if you have like an enemy in a location like that and you were to move into that spot, you would get to place your power token. However, if an enemy is ever in a location where your power token is at, it is destroyed and it is returned to you. So, you know, it isn't one of those things where you have to be alone on the spot to be able to place the power token down. You just have to get to that location. You can add it to the board. Power tokens are actually also your action tokens. So the more, if you put power tokens out there, you're actually going to lose the number of actions that you have. But once again, power tokens are something you have to get out and about on the board so you're able to win. All right, so on your turn, you're just going to take an action. Usually what that comes down to is, oh, I should place these tokens. So like there's those 3 tokens, and you have 3 of each of these types of, as you draw these different creatures, you're going to place your tokens on there to show that you have those available to you. You can, on your turn, you'll take an action, and there's a few you can take. If you are on the portion of your lore to actually summon your legendary weapon, you can do that. However, we can't really do that right now because we haven't got to that point. More about the saga and the lore here in just a little bit. If you place an action token on top of your battle deck, you draw 2 battle deck cards. If you place an action token onto one of the 2 units that you have available, you can then summon those units. At most, you are able to put 4 of your own faction in any one location, and plus you can only place them where you have power tokens located. So you have to keep that in mind as you summon those. You can, if you use put it on your avatar will give it secondary ability. Avatars have several abilities. They have a primary and a secondary ability. It will give the units in its location 2 to all of its allies in that location. So that can be a very powerful action that they can take as well. You relieve those power tokens on there, and so basically the round is done when nobody has any power tokens left to play. So that's how you know that the turn is done. So very simply, just taking your turn, if you wanted to get units out, you place that on there. Remember, you can have a total of 4 units in a spot, so we can summon all 3 of these to that spot there. And now on our turn, we can go ahead and move. After you've done that, you can move your units up to 3 spaces. Now, a couple things. You probably want to take one of these guys and go 1, 2, 3 to get to there, and then we were able to place another power token down because they're in that location. Now, Anima technically would be going halfway through the round, so there'll be other units have moved out here. I'm just doing this to kind of show you how the game is played. We can move these 2 to this location here, and why would I move 2 there is because it's right in front of an enemy base, so it's probably gonna be tough to defend that. I'm going to show you the Saga card right now. So the Saga card denotes a location on the board that is basically, if I can get my avatar there, I can open up the next level of its saga, the next level of its lore. And so this is actually a Felinar, and Felinar is located right there. There's some flavor text on there as well. And I should mention that the lore and the background, the narrative of the game is really, really cool. So if we go 1, 2, 3, place it on there like so, that would end that particular lore. When you end a lore, what you do is you take the first lore card that you have, and you then are going to read this. You read that out loud, the balance of light and dark. You read that out loud to all the players, and then you move on to the second part of your lore. Now I've finished that saga, so that means I need to draw another saga. And as long as the card in the saga deck has it is for my level 2 light 2, and this is it does have that on there, and you can see it tells me the next place I have to go. So the next place I go is the Scorched Wastes, which would be there, and then I would be able to complete the second part of my story. And then there's 3 parts to your saga till you get to the point where you're then able to access, you basically found the 3 parts of your legendary weapon, and then you can take that action to forge that legendary weapon, which, remember, is a way that if all 3 of your avatars are alive, they can forge their legendary weapons and you can win the game. But the whole thing is that, on my next turn I could move there, but more or less likely, remember, everybody else is moving as well, meaning that players are going to be, my opponents are going to be out there, and I don't want to lose my avatar. I don't want to get them killed in a combat. So I want to make sure I work with my allies, work with my friends, discuss our strategies together, and figure out a way to protect ourselves, but also continue on and be successful. All right, so that is kind of how you take your turns. You place a token down, and once you have a token down on a spot, you can't take that action again. I somehow moved my square up there. There we go. You can't take that action again. That's why you leave that token on that. After the round is done, you'll collect all of those and be able to use them again later, but that's how that works. All right, so combat is very, very straightforward, but it's very tactical. Just for example, let's say an opposing player wanted to try to take me out of that spot, and I'm going to kind of cheat here and just kind of set something up perfectly. So let's say purple had moved in there with a nimble unit, which is what that is right there, and they have an Elemancers. They move an Elemancers into that location, and let's move one of their Annihilators. So I have Annihilator and my my avatar in that location. Now the interesting thing is, nimble opponents are able to actually, if they choose to, be involved in a combat that's located. Nimble opponents are always, it's wise to place them in spots where they're able to attack and move between the different areas easily, and be able to then be able to assist in multiple combats. If it survives the combat, it'll move back to its location. So you kind of just put it in the little halvesies area right there. Now the way combat works is very simple. You're going to take, for every combatant that you have, you get a die with a maximum of 3 dice. So even if you had 4 units in that location, you'd still only get to roll 3 dice. But more units in a location means that you have more options as far as the damage that can be done divvied about. You're going to roll dice. Any roll that is a 5 or higher is considered a hit. So let's just roll these 2 dice for that one. And I rolled 2 1s. I'm going. That was horrible, but we'll just see what happens here. And then we will go ahead and we'll roll 3 dice for the opponents here. And I got 8, 4, and 5. Oh, 6, 4, and 5. So there are actually like 2 successes in this particular spot. So the number one, their special ability doesn't come into play here because of the fact that like their special ability is the fact that they're just involved in the combat to begin with. However, both the Annihilators and Elemancers have special ability. An Elemancer can re-roll a friendly unit's die roll. So in this case, like we could re-roll the 4 and see. Now, I rolled a 1, so it didn't work. The way combat works, though, is like one person takes their special ability and uses it, and the other person takes their special ability and uses it, and so on and so forth, and you kind of ping-pong back and forth. So then they would go, and then what I have is the Annihilator has the ability to increase 1 die roll by 1. Well, that really doesn't help me at all in this situation. And in actuality, I should have actually used that for that ability, because like that 4 would have become a 5 then, which is fine. Let's just say that. And then the other player with Gorak here, we're like, they got 3 hits. Now damage is assessed it has to be assessed to the minions, like the lesser units, before they come into play and can hurt the avatar. So so they say, okay, well, my first hit is going to take care of your minion. But I kind of cheated and I know what this battle thing is. You have Soul Resurrection, which if I use this battle card during the damage portion of the phase, let me just make sure, it allows you to basically prevent 1 hit of damage. So my opponent, and let's just say I had taken a point of damage already and I was at 2 hit points with Gorak. And so my opponent's like, haha, I'm going to kill your avatar. Well, they would say, I'm going to do a point of damage to this one, and that takes care of that hit. But I'd say, nope, I have this battle card. I'm going to say, you don't actually do that damage. You put it back. And so, like, they've done the damage with that particular one, so they put it back. Now they do 2 hits. They do kill that particular one, but the second hit, which they thought they'd have 3 hits, that would only reduce Gorak down to 1. So I mean, like, that's how like these tactics can go back and forth and how different battle cards can do different things. And it's important to note that each one of your units can only do their attack once. So like you can't just say, oh, this one's going to use it, he's going to use it again, he's going to use it again. They each get to enact their ability only 1 time for that particular combat. There's also some other cool abilities as well. One of the things is like these units that have these eyes, they're called fade units. Like if they get attacked and they can move, they can just move to another location. When they do that, you have to turn them face up to show that they've used their power, and basically they can't use their power again. They don't have those powers. That can be pretty damaging if you run into a banisher type unit. Banisher type units that if they end up in a spot where there is a face-up unit, they can just go ahead and kill a face-up unit without them being involved in the combat in any way, shape, or form before combat even starts. There's other units that allow you to reroll your own dice. There's one that allows you to lower the attack value of like your opponent's, by one of the opponent's dies by what, and so on and so forth. There's lots of different cool abilities like that. And I do like that aspect of combat. You do your special ability, I do my special ability. You do your special ability, and so forth, back and forth until you finally have your outcome. Plus, combat doesn't take a long time, and so it doesn't get bogged down with a bunch of dice rolls, and everybody else at the table is just waiting for that one to get done. All right, so a couple of things. I talked about how the game ends. If you activate, if you get your legendary weapon. For all of them, then there is actually you are directed to read a certain lore card, and you're gonna read that. I'm not gonna. I kind of want to leave this stuff up to. I'm sure, like if you go online, you can find like the card, the words and things like that, and you can definitely read about it. But they are really cool narrative, storyline, lore situations where like you're going to advance all your lore decks to a certain lore deck, and then you're going to read those, and there's going to be special things that are going to happen at that time that are going to change the way the game is played and how the game ends. So those are really cool. But I do really like as soon as somebody activates their legendary weapon, the shield drops and Baransu comes alive. And this is a really cool aspect of the game. So Baransu is this giant mother of all dragons that just is an agent of chaos. Doesn't want anybody else doing. Wants the world of the Elemancers to crumble. So at the end of each turn, every time a player takes a turn, they'll roll a die, and depending on the die roll, like that's 7, that means that the player whose turn it is gets to move Baransu to any location and like do battle with what's there. If they go to a spot that has a token like on it, like so, and they go there, it destroys that token, and it actually the Baransu heals a hit point, so you can use it as like that to like destroy the other player's spots on the board. Baransu can, like, if you roll a 1 or a 2, Baransu then will just go to like the closest avatar and fight that avatar and battle it. If you roll a 3 through 5, it moves to the furthest power token and then just removes it. Just like the action of moving it to wherever you want, they can go there and do that. But it's more chaotic, right? It'll go to the one furthest away. And to determine the furthest away, it's like you actually count the hexes. So like if it was 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty straightforward how that works. Baransu is pretty amazing as far as like it's just like basically another avatar on the board. And like I said, it's a wonderful agent of chaos that is going to move around and destroy. And plus, when Baransu collects those power tokens, you place them on her card over here, and Baransu can actually win the game. So after the game is over, after your 2 rounds are done, you will figure out how many power tokens of each faction are on the board, and whoever is that will win. If Baransu does, there is a very special end game situation that, once again, I don't want to give away too much about the game, but it is just one of those things that it's just like it's a very cool narrative, neat way for the game to wrap itself up, and I do like the story that the game tells you. So there you go. I mean, that is Elemancers. It is it has wonderful, straightforward but deep tactical rule set. It has cool factions. It has cool units with cool abilities, and is just a heck of a lot of fun. And it doesn't last too long, but it isn't over too quickly. We're looking at 60 to 75 minutes if everybody knows how to play the game, which I think is the exact right time length for this game to be played. I played it with 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 players, and we've all had a blast. But let me talk more about all of that and more in my final thoughts. All right, I'm not going to let the man upstairs drop this one down because I'm scared to break, and I got to send this back to Jared. But regardless of anything, I really enjoyed this game. This game is totally in my wheelhouse as far as like just kind of that old school tactical game. The games I grew up on and I played, there weren't the standard like Monopoly, Payday board games that everybody had in their cupboard. The ones where I didn't realize that I was like branching into designer board games when I did it as a kid. But the games that I really enjoyed were those deeper games, the deeper games that had like well-focused strategies and tactical combat and things like that that I really enjoyed growing up, and which kind of like it was my formative years as a game player. So I knew I was gonna like it, and I hate this word. I know like people are like, oh, it's got great world building. It's like why is that such a catchphrase now? I mean, when I was 6 years old, I was creating dungeons for Dungeons and Dragons. Does that mean I was a world builder? I mean, no. I was a person, you know, just throwing monsters and treasure in square boxes on a piece of graph paper. I wasn't building worlds. But I will say this. The designer has definitely taken the time to create a world, a living and breathing world that has a backstory, that has more to it than just like little flavor, like sentence of flavor text here and there. I would really love to know more about this world. I'd really love to know more about like everything else that's going on. I'd love to know where you came up with the ideas, and I'm definitely stealing some for like my next D&D campaign. I found myself as I was reading the lore cards, and I was reading the different saga cards. I was like little like sparklings of imagination were going off in the back of my head, and I was like, oh yeah, that'd be a great idea, you know, just like stuff like that, you know. So definitely cool. So I mean, I guess I just can't. I like games like this. I like games where I'm against other players. I like games where I'm talking like in little quiet conversations. So if you go over there and get that guy, then I can go over. You know, having those conversations, and while the other people are like, "What's going on? What's going on?" Nah, it's none of your business. You know, just like as you're talking with your teammates in your faction, as far as like, here, we should go here. I need to get to this spot here, and then I can drop that off. You know, and so I enjoy that communication, that collaboration, that discussion, and also I really like the fact that like I've had games of this come down to like final die rolls, like as because of all the different ways to end. Like if you're getting closer to like the second round ending, and like you're scrambling for those last little bits of power tokens and trying to take out the other player's power tokens, it like turns into a very, very bloody end at the end of the game. Was something I really enjoyed. And I had, like I said, I had a couple games come down to like a final die roll, and I know a lot of people would say, "Oh, that stinks." It's like, "Oh, you played all that long, and there's that final die roll, and then just because it turned out to be a 5, you lost." You know, and I'm like, no, I think that's actually pretty cool. I mean, because how about the fact that like you played the game for the last hour or so, and you're so evenly matched, it comes down to that final die roll. I mean, who cares who wins or loses that time? I mean, of course, winning's great, losing, whatever. But I mean, just think of the fact that you played so well and you were so evenly matched with your opponents that like you've both been on this wonderful journey, this saga, if you will, to get to that point. And regardless of what that die comes up with, whether it is a success or a fail, it almost is like the last cymbal crash of like the great overture that you've had, and I've always liked stuff like that. I just I don't like playing games where it's like, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you were winning the entire time, you know. But when you have like situations where like very, very cool tactical choices and choosing those perfect moments to act, or using a perfect ability in a perfect time, things like that, you know, like create those memorable gaming experiences that will like stay with you for a long time afterwards. So there you go. That is Elemancers. If you have any questions about the game, please ask away. I'll be happy to answer those as best as I can. As always, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. Just be the most awesome version of you as you possibly can. I know you will, because you know why? Because you're awesome, and I'm the Undead Viking. I'll talk to you later.